There's a TF2 class that we never got. The 9 existing TF2 classes have held such consistent internet prevalence that their likeness has probably been permanently burned into your brain. Unlike more contemporary class-based games, Valve has never added an additional class since the 2009 launch. But there is one class that we never got, and it's not what you might be thinking. It was pretty much ready to be shipped with its own unique abilities, weapons, an update rollout, achievements, and even starting cosmetics. It was almost added, and this video covers all of that. You see, some fans have long suggested that there is or was technically a 10th class, but I disagree. The Civilian, a class with no weapons but an umbrella and an incredibly large cranium,
Boom. Headshot.
was originally intended to be in TF2 as part of the Escort game mode, originally existing in Team Fortress and Team Fortress Classic, where a bodyguard class had to escort a civilian class to an endpoint without an assassin class killing them. Even if the Civilian was added, I'd argue that it still wouldn't be the 10th class in the sense of being a mercenary, as it's unique to a specific game mode, a novel experience separate to the base game where all classes are available to play. This also extends to the next suggestion for a 10th class, Saxton Hale, who was officially added into the core game, not just as a community mod as it used to be, last year in July for the summer update. Upon release, even a part of me believes that he would technically count as the 10th class. After all, you're playing as a new character with unique abilities on an official Valve server. With time, I changed my mind, as like the Civilian, it's not a class that can be played in a standard game. Not a mercenary, only a novelty extra game mode. His design is also simply an altered version of the Heavy class with a custom model. If it was truly his own class, I doubt that this would be the case. But the same can't be said for the most recent staple as an argument for the 10th class, Madcap, who was actually removed. And that's how we know the exact release date of the next TF2 update. So, those common 10th class suggestions aside, the real TF2 class we never got, like the addition of Saxton Hale and major events like End of the Line, was a community update. But this 10th class concept was in 2009, before there were any news of community updates even being a possibility. Team Fortress 2's existence is reliant on community content, sure, as Team Fortress was a community mod for Quake before being picked up by Valve. But despite Valve taking TF2 shipping features based on community feedback, it wasn't until 2010 that TF2 had its first actual community update, literally called the first community contribution update. So how could a specific 10th class suggestion by the community be so notable if it was before community updates even existed? Well, it was the first time Valve ever responded to a community suggestion like this, and it was positive. The response Valve gave, nurtured and acted as a catalyst for the creative community spirit TF2 is known for today. So let's look at that. But before we do that, we of course need to look to see what the suggested 10th class was, along with its weapons, unique abilities, cosmetics, and achievements. The update was submitted as a self-proclaimed fan art, recreating the standard look of what previous TF2 update pages had looked like, fit with a 2-day rollout, weapons, cosmetics, and unique class abilities. The 3 main weapons suggested for the guard dog were the Helper, the Hater, and the Hanger, the guard dog's primary weapon. 2 cannons mounted onto the back of the dog, and by the submitted screenshot looks very similar to D.Va's mech machine guns, and is similarly described as weaker than it seems, yet useful to keep the unwanted guests at bay, revealing that range damage can mainly be used as a way to apply pressure from a distance at a safe space, giving a huddled team that extra bit of presence, or it could be used to weaken an enemy before getting closer with another weapon that we'll see in a second. This fits well with the Helper, which allows the class to fetch medkits, ammo, and fallen guns to deliver to any teammate, as well as stealing from the enemies. Seeing as the guard dog cannot attack while carrying these items, along with his weaker ranged firearms, without a doubt puts the guard dog in a more supportive role, which would likely be positioned best in team-controlled areas of the map, fortifying those positions. The class was labelled as a multi-function class, however, which we'll cover later. This makes the Hater a massive standout to the previous 2 weapons. Not only does it not have to recharge like the other 2, but it frees the class of a completely restrictive defensive playstyle, giving the guard dog 2 rockets that allow you to run faster or leap to inflict a melee damage bite with higher damage. The speed boost only lasts a few seconds and so requires good timing, positioning, and strategy, but this opens the door for more flanking for health packs, harassing from the sidelines, and distracting the enemy to allow for your tanks or DPS classes to close gaps. Not to draw another comparison, but you can see how useful these types of actions can be with Sky's Dog in Valorant when it comes to applying pressure and creating a dynamic push. It also makes a support-like class more engaging than just clicking once on a teammate like the medic, and has a more rewarding feeling of a deserved direct impact that has potential to create some game-changing plays in an instant. This still doesn't shadow the more humble playstyle of assisting the team from safer areas, however. This is where the multifunction class aspect of being offense, defense, or support comes into play. A diverse rotation scenario playstyle is created of giving gear to teammates and then supporting them with your long-range guns, running off to harass to get further gear or to initiate a push, before returning back to the team to provide that extra gear and fortify their position before it's safe to start the rotation again. In that rotation, you do get all aspects of the multifunction class, but I'd argue that it's using all of the abilities in tandem that gives it such a strong impact. And due to a nature of a high percentage of that rotation being aimed to support the team, I'd say that it leaves the guard dog in a support role more than anything. Aside from the one higher damage Byte ability used to isolate a target, which 2 of the 3 support roles do anyway, the rest of the items are aimed at the support of the team unit. Equally, if only one of the weapons are used to try and only be offense, only be defense, or only be support, suggested in their wording of either as defense, offense, or support, there is already a class that does each better. Sniper or spy for the hater damage, scout for the harass or flanking side of the hater weapon, engineer for the helping gear, and heavy or soldier for the mid to long range DPS of the hanger. To give the creator the benefit of the doubt, this could mean that whatever the situation calls for at any particular moment, the guard dog can accommodate to supporting it. Whether it be that extra defense is needed, harass is needed, or extra gear is needed, you could alter the previously mentioned rotation and how long is spent at each stage depending on the strength of your team, without having to go back to spawn or wait to die to change class to support that gap. It creates a solution for having to constantly change team comp to fit with whatever your team needs. Some would say this is an integral part of a class-based shooter, however, and I feel like this may attract some arguments to say that this could be ironed out by having a well thought of comp beforehand, where any of the pre-existing classes could just do a better job than the guard dog anyway. That being said, while guard dog's versatility may not have a strong utility compared to other classes, the versatility it does have is where it could shine. Even if a team has a perfect comp, classes die, and with good teammates and a quick thinker playing the guard dog, they could fill the role of the dead player until they respawn. If an engineer dies and has his buildings destroyed, the guard dog could spend more time looking to bring back health and ammo to the team. If the scout can't quite get the picks or flank far enough, the guard dog can help assist him. This is definitely up for debate though, so let me know how well you think the guard dog would complement this aspect of gameplay or disrupt it in the comments. Alongside these 3 new weapons, there are also extra class abilities. What initially struck me as the most disruptive aspect was its unique class ability to be able to detect the exact position of an enemy. Wall hacks! If you sniff an intact corpse or fallen gun when the enemy respawns, you'll be able to track them through walls until the round ends or you sniff another corpse or die. You also have a higher chance to inflict mini crits on the tracked victim. This just seems completely ridiculously overpowered to me, until I realized it wasn't an outline of the enemy, but instead a simple directional radar. Although still strong, maps with intricate layouts and high player numbers reduce the utility of the ability to a point where more rewarding plays still need a lot of thought behind them to be fully functional, such as finding more impactful enemy players' corpses specifically during a final push, to find out when they've respawned and how long your team has relative safety for before the pocketed heavy returns to a choke point, for example. I also personally thought it was a great way to have a mechanic feed back into itself, as it means that guard dog players would also have to have the extra responsibility to find gear and return to their own team in order for enemy guard dogs to not get an advantage by sniffing out their team. It's a clever way to flatten out some of the guard dog's perhaps too strong versatility by giving it that extra responsibility. There's also a second noted ability, where one of the guard dog's taunts, the Girati dispenser, using the helper weapon, can fill a nearby sniper's Girati meter back to full. To finish off day 1 of the update, 37 achievements were included. This shouldn't be understated, as back in 2009, achievements were way more valued, essentially seen as contract missions or a more clouty full battle pass meter, by many. Valve then responded with an official blog post attached with a letter as if Saxton Hale was considering taking on their invention ideas for Manco, using a slightly passive-aggressive template, symbolizing an almost automated response you might receive from a customer service email. This is beside the point, of course, as it was the first ever response to a full community update. Everyone in the TF2 community at the time was so excited, and the letter read, "Good day inventor, thank you for your submission number 1308, Guard Dog. Item retrieving, cannon appended canine unit. First of all, let me commend you for your ingenuity. Your application is pending. Watch your mailbox because we will evaluate your invention and get back to you. I look forward to working with you in the future." Despite the letter almost feeling like a backhanded compliment, the single phrase, "I look forward to working with you in the future," is undeniably inferring that not only this specific class has a real chance of getting into the game, but that by extension, any community work has potential to end up in the real game. Although the guard dog of course never shipped, it's hard to imagine the excitement that rose when the community find out that getting their own work into Team Fortress 2 was a possibility. It was only 6 months later that the community contribution update was released, showcasing community work such as new weapons like the Home Wrecker, the Locust Bar and the Pain Train, hats like the Troublemaker's Tossle Cap, the Hound Dog and the Killer's Kabuto, items that remain iconic to this day. I wouldn't be surprised if a majority of players didn't even know that these were community items. To further incentivize community contributions, as if Valve hadn't already made the message clear already, they also presented the Community Sparkle Unusual effect that will be applied to any new items added and awarded to the creator when the corresponding update is shipped to players. After Valve's response, the webpage was later edited to reveal a day 2 of the update, including 13 cosmetics for the dog, some by the original creator and others that the community had made in response to seeing the guard dog idea in the forums or perhaps even day 1 of the update revealed by the TF2 blog post. 2 new maps, CTF Convoy and CTF Aerospace, were also submitted. The creator also added a message to Valve and the community expressing gratitude for the positive response. He said he was very surprised with the happy and unbelievably huge proportions of all of this happening, thanking the community for his acknowledgement, feedback and criticism that got the idea to reach the ears of Valve staff. He said that he had no dreams or hope of the guard dog being implemented, and that to do so would be naive. He once again said thanks Valve and the community. The Valve forum Secret Option F also interviewed the creator, where the creator mentioned that Valve is doing really well by listening to the community and that it makes a nice link between the company and the public. It keeps users interested and anxious for news. That's why TF2 became more and more famous. Seeing the recent news of Valve cancelling Source 2 projects makes you wonder how true this still is today. Although TF2 Source 2 didn't have correct licensing, it seems like something that Valve could have originally picked up back in the day. The creator also said that he almost fainted when he saw the letter, and also responded to questioning about how much the dog would fit into the game by saying the guard dog would fit the TF2 universe because dogs were commonly used in the World War, the same timeline of what TF2 was based on. He has pros and cons like the other classes. Forget Peter and the other small troll stuff, TF2 can reach another level with a new class. Guard dog doesn't need to be that class, but it would be amazing to me and the fans. But after all this positivity, why was it scrapped? What happened to the guard dog if it wasn't included in the community contribution update? We can only presume that Valve didn't think it was a good fit for TF2. Here are a few of the reasons why that I can think of. The first is that also in 2009, Valve's Robin Walker had stated that Valve once had several new class ideas floating around for new classes, some of which we like a lot, but right now we're focusing on the broadening of our existing classes through unlockables, and later said, the 9 classes provide a wide spread of gameplay for us, and we find that new class ideas are more like subclasses for an existing class. To me, this makes it clear that Valve came to a conclusion that all the ideas they did like for a 10th class already fit within the subclasses for a pre-existing mercenary. What I said earlier about the guard dog containing parts of other classes is exemplary of this. You could argue that even if not intentional, fragments of the guard dog's kit ended up as items in the game. The jump mechanic in the Hazer for harassment is similar to the Pyro's jetpack. The trade-off of a low-damage automatic weapon for added team defense was already seen in the Natasha, and you could already drop portable health kits as the heavy in the form of sandwiches, which can be restored by picking up health kits at full health. So some fragments of what the guard dog was are in the game, but if I were to be a bit more critical, I'd say that although the models are impressive for the guard dog, especially for a novice modeler working in spare time, I feel that the models are a bit too flat for a furry animal and leaves colour differences in the textures to create a bit of a rubbery feel. The idea of a dog being a full-blown class also just feels a bit out there, personally. That being said, the fact this fan art was made by one person in a short time is so impressive, and they genuinely create a class that sounds fun to play. Even if only as an option on a specific map, I'd love to give it a try, and the core gameplay of the character complements the pre-existing battlefield well in my head. But what did the community think? I saw a few people agree with my sentiment that the class would not be overly disruptive.
The interesting thing about it is the way that it's described, it actually wouldn't have even been unbalanced or contradicted with the current gameplay that much. it wouldn't be too much of an overpowered class. If anything, it would be weaker than other classes.
An Escapist magazine forum page was also created on the day of the blog post, with many responses ranging from concerns with Peter's reaction to including an animal in a violent game, some saying that it was not only obviously fake, but an entirely bad idea for a class, to saying that even if it is a joke, it's an adorable idea, and that some weapons like the Girati started out as a joke, but then became a reality. The main criticisms were that the model would be too small and that it would make the spy obsolete, ultimately making it too intrusive of an addition that would result in major balance changes to the other classes, disrupting the game in its current form, as the dynamic nature of the class would be overpowered. One forum member named Uppity Cracker posted 6 days after the blog post claiming that he had been in contact with Robin Walker, who had confirmed that the guard dog would not be added. Supposing for a second that this is true, a decision made that soon after the blog post makes me wonder if Valve were ever truly considering it as an addition, or if the response really did have an ulterior motive of letting the community know that community content had a high probability of actually making it into the game to manifest a creative motivation in the community. Perhaps they already had plans for the community contribution update and wanted to incite a lot of motivation to get more submissions. After all, there were a lot of positive responses besides implementation into the game around Valve's response and the creativity of the suggestion. It was clear that TF2's creative spirit was already present, and that they liked it. This atmosphere is still true today, even if more recently there's been a more critical outlook on the care of maintaining TF2's art style and gameplay integrity. It should be easy to understand that this creative spirit can be maintained, allowing for creators' passionate pursuits, while still holding the game's best interest and original vision at heart. Believe it or not, there is a middle ground between submitting hats that are plain ridiculous and sending abuse to community members. Although I agree with Uncle Dane in saying that Valve should have a final say in maintaining TF2's style, the community does not need to take this polarizing stance towards creative community work. Overall, the guard dog, although not the most well-known 10th class suggestion, has lived on in the spirit of many, even being brought back to life in this 29 SFM animation by Anomade, a mock-up of Meet the Guard Dog, which has been used as background footage for this video. I asked you guys what ideas you'd like for a 10th class, and here are some of my favourite responses. What are your thoughts on the Guard Dog as a 10th class edition? Do you think there would be a 10th class, and if so, what would it be? If that's a cool enough idea, I'll create a mod for that class for a video in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.